What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another weekly update. And in this video, what I'd like to do is provide you some events, some upcoming earnings to get you prepared for the week ahead. If that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily updates as well to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead. So let's go ahead and pull up our list for the week. Let's see what we got here. A couple things. Again, there's not really a lot of big news until the next core CPI to really determine if we've topped out on inflation. Again, inflation is something that is extremely volatile, even though we're on the essentially a down spike of the inflation. We have to see if it spikes back up here in the next coming weeks. But we do have time, and in between that time, we have a bit of a rally on our hands. It's something we haven't really seen. We want to see how long this rally can extend until that next report. So Wednesday we do have the FOMC meeting notes. Will be interesting to watch because we want to see why the Fed came in with essentially another 75-point basis move, and then what are they kind of seeing? Because we have been getting a lot of reports from the Fed saying that inflation is not going away, that inflation levels are going to remain high, and that they are going to continue to push out high rates. Again, if they continue to keep doing this, it's going to lead to a recession. Even though we are currently in a recession, in my mind, I think there's a lot of misinformation on what we're seeing and what is really going on. So, again, if you could take a step back and kind of glance at on pricing, it really matters. Now, some places will come down quicker than others, but I know for myself personally, things have come down a little bit, but then it seems, and something we've talked about is that it shifts. Even though you're not seeing inflation on some things, it's starting to come down. It seems inflation on other things are starting to pick up. So we have to see. We have to see what the next report will provide. But nonetheless, we got that on Wednesday. Meeting notes, so that'd be interesting to see. I don't know how much weight it's really going to have. I think at this point, the market really doesn't care unless there's something saying that the forward is looking pretty bleak. Then any kind of forward outlook could be bad sentiment for the market. And as I get into some of the technicals, you'll see that it could be leading to some kind of a little bit of a downside pullback coming up. Again, you don't want the market to run parabolic. You want healthy pullbacks. There's a difference between a healthy pullback and essentially a panic that we've seen before where we just drop like this. So we'll see what this next coming week brings. Upcoming, the FOMC meeting is until September, so we got a long runway here that kind of help us lead into it more of a rally. Upcoming earnings. Now, this is what's going to be interesting. This is what could potentially hurt the market. Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Applied Materials are some interesting takes. I think Applied Materials will actually go through the roof coming up, so I want to watch it on Thursday. Target and Walmart and Lowe's. Lowe's maybe not so much, but Target and Walmart, they essentially downgraded their forward guidance a lot because they have a massive surplus of supplies. So this would be a really interesting take on to see what's going on there, if they've been able to move any supply. Again, we're trying to gauge the customer and see where the customer is at. We're starting to get demand destruction, and we got to see if the customer's still there and still buying. A lot of these other data sets are lagging, so this will kind of give us a front line on where things are at. If it is good, I think we could potentially rally, get more of a push in value, and continuing with the banks, because the banks are in a good position for a nice run here. So I think we can get an overall general sentiment push, which if you want any kind of bullishness, you want kind of all industries to be pushing at one time. That is super strong and super bullish if that does happen. So we're kind of looking for that next move. As far as watch lists, I've separated this because I like to keep these as far as like trying to separate the industries. Obviously general market, and then you got tech with Tesla, and you got value with BA, and you got financials with JPM at 24. Don't really add any kind of health care in there because I very rarely trade it. I don't like the volatility in it, so I don't really put that stuff up there. This week I have shop. Now some of these look big compared to these moves here. This $3, but as far as like percentage wise, like most of these are over 100 percentages. So Revlon I think is like I think this one is like a 95% move for that $3 move. So even though they don't look like a lot as far as percentage wise, again for that stock they're moving a lot. So I'm watching shop, UPST. I think all these are kind of consolidating and ready for breakouts. So I'm kind of watching these ones. Coin, obviously, if Bitcoin starts running this week, it's been consolidating. It needs to break that level, but if it could break a level, we could get a nice run on Coin and Revlon. So this week, again, general market sentiment, I think is going to be pretty null and void at this point. So you're going to get a lot of Fed members this week. So you're going to get a lot of talk, maybe about some hawkishness. It could potentially introduce something that could cause the market to sell. But we have to see. Again, as far as the daily, we're hitting at that trend line. So we want to see if we can break this. We want to see if we can break above essentially that 4,300 is something I've been talking about last week. If we can break that, I think we can get a solid attempt to try to run potentially to all-time highs. Again, we got a long runway, and if the market's been beaten down essentially almost all year, we had a nice run here. This is where we thought we hit peak here. We had a really nice run, and then we started selling off because we realized we didn't hit peak. That is my only concern, is that we're getting this nice run here. Hopefully, we could potentially even run even higher, right? We could even be retesting this 4,600. That's not saying it will, but we definitely have to keep an eye on that's what could be potentially happening. Again, we have to see. There's no promises. It's always 50-50, and this is why we go day by day to determine what the general market sentiment is, because it does change on a dime. So again, if we could break above this, that'd be great. If we want a daily candle to open above this, so we want to see how we open Monday morning, and then go from that spot. If we start pulling back again, now this is pretty strong support now. We had to break that key level, so we're really wanting to hold that 4,200 from this point forward. If we can hold that, we could be in the clear. But again, market sentiment can change things really quickly. Things aren't setting up the greatest. Somehow the market can figure out a way to get around stuff at some point too as well. So just keep that in mind. But so we're really watching this to see what could potentially happen here. I'm actually expecting a pullback to this level and holding. As long as they can hold it, I think we're good. We might get some chop in here before we break out. I think we could potentially just sit in here and chop till we get the meeting notes. That might give us some guidance. I think right now the market's kind of just thirsty for any kind of potential Fed moves. And they're not just going off of what the Fed's saying. They're more so looking at the data that might match up with what the Fed is saying, because they're completely ignoring what the Fed has been talking heavily about big rate raises and stuff like that, and inflation not going away and being high for a very long time, and so for at least another year out. So with that being said, how is the market going to take that, and where will the market land? Are we going to chop here till we get those notes, and then potentially maybe something in those notes will tell us what the Fed is looking at specifically, and then let's see if we break out or break down from that point. But again, I don't really see anything else that's going to shift the market. Again, aside from the Walmart Target thing, could be a big surprise and could be a big game changer, especially because they downgraded so much coming in. So we'll have to see on that one. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, again, it needs to break this level. It's been really attempting to try to break it. Especially that 25K mark. If we break that, obviously, it's almost all the psychological levels, right? The 30K mark be the next one to break. But for me, it really has to get back above this 200 EMA daily. So you're looking at the 35 for this to be a good reversal. If not, I think this, again, could come down pretty heavily from this point. But we have to see. Everything is a hurry up and wait. Again, there is kind of a clear picture for the next 3 weeks, and that's enough of a window for the market to try to run and it's taking advantage of that those 3 weeks as best as it can. So we want to see how much progress these like Bitcoin and SPX can make in that short amount of time before any new bad news comes out. So that is something to keep in mind. Your dollar is still highly elevated, and so that's another concern too. Is your dollar is still very elevated. Your oil in itself, if I could find oil is still sitting at 91. It dropped pretty low. It dropped in the 80s for a brief moment. Now it's back up to the 90s. Again, you have to see how things are going there. There's been some issues with oil refineries and stuff. I think there was some that blew up over the past week. And so there's some issues there. So we just want to make sure, again, as long as the world economy is good, which right now it's seeming like things are kind of peaking. They're not getting really worse. They're kind of just being stagnant. Again, we have to see. We have to see if that does change or does not. If that does change, we could be good. But it's not saying that we could be good for a brief moment and then flip right back to bad. So and this is why it's good to have confirmation and not try to FOMO in. Confirmation is better than just guessing and then realizing that that's not what it was. So get hammered. But nonetheless, with that being said, take a look at Tesla here real quick. Tesla going this week is doing well. I've been talking about this 845 mark. As long as it's going to hold that, I think it'd be good. We get any kind of rally, I think, again, we could possibly top out at the 1148. Again, I think Tesla might just sit here. It could potentially, in my honest opinion, I think it's just going to sit here and chop and maybe have a nice run. Maybe we get a little bit of a higher high here. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll just sit here and chop around for a while until the next earnings cycle, and then go from that point. Again, it's got a stock split here coming up too at the 25th, so it's just around the corner when that does happen. So, and then again, all these stock splits are diluting shares, so you got to be mindful of that. So it's not going to move as much as it used to. So hoping it doesn't dilute the stock too much, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays. You have to see how it plays after the fact. So Shop is the other one I have this week. I'm not going to really go over BA or JPM. I'm going to look at the banks towards the end, but Shop, I like a lot of this massive amount of consolidation. This thing has been consolidating for a very long time, but it does need to break that 43 mark. I think if it breaks that, it really gets some gas, and then potentially head to 78. So kind of really watching that level. It's been attempting to try to break it, but having a really rough time. So I want to watch to see if that does break out, because I think if Shop does break, the market does get in some sort of crazy rally. I think Shop will have a lot of ground to make up. So really watching that one. UPST is the same way. It's been consolidating a lot, especially if the financial sector is really running. It's been having some good consolidation. Could be making a higher low here. We wanted to break above essentially that 36 mark. If we can break and hold above that, I think this thing can start running back up and start really gaining some traction here. I did have a wedge break here for a nice little breakout. So kind of looking to see if this thing can continue to break out moving forward. Again, any kind of rally will help some of these. So I'm kind of looking for the ones that are lagging a little bit and then go for those. Then Coin is the next one I do have. And now Coin is again following the market. I want to see if we do any kind of pullback, if it can pull back to the 73 and a hold. If it does, I think this thing could get you got a nice span up here to the 200 EMA daily, which is sitting roughly around the 160 mark. So I kind of want to see if we do get a pullback, it holds. I'm looking forward to not going to obviously say that it's going to hit this in a day, but I can see it making up some really good ground close to that. Again, when you start talking about higher time frames, you won't hit it exactly, but you get pretty close. You could probably more look at the 150, maybe the 148 roughly is where this might land in the next couple of days. This is where we're kind of getting a more swing action here, but I want to see if we can hold that. And it's playing this level between 82 and 98. So could even potentially enter here. Tight stop here and then hope for the breakout. Could be a nice play as well. So I want to keep that on watch. Revlon, RVLV. This one has been interesting. This one, I've played this a couple different times. I haven't touched it since kind of everything that's been going on. Waiting for this thing to kind of bottom. It looks like it could potentially be bottoming here at $25. Looking for roughly around the 25.30 mark entry on this thing. And then look to see if this breaks the daily. I think if it breaks the daily, you can get a nice rip, at least up to the $40, potentially $40 mark. Again, first attempt, it should get rejected pretty hard off the 40, but if we can break through that, right, this thing could potentially run all the way back up to $60. So kind of watching this, keeping it on watch to watch that break. Again, the daily wedge and everything, I really like this setup. So this is one of the primary ones I want to watch as well too. So. And then lastly, but not least, let's check out JPM. Look at one of the banks. This is what I'm talking about. Looks like we're starting to get a actual breakout here on the banks, which is going to help the general market push. So really kind of watching this to see, because I think tech is probably going to stall because it's kind of way out of earnings, and it wants to kind of reserve the push for the next earnings cycle. So I'm saying it won't push, but I think you're going to get bigger moves in value in the financials than potentially tech, because I think tech is starting to peak a little bit, and then again, like I said, roll over and kind of consolidate until the next move. So JPM, I think we got a pretty clear shot all the way up to roughly the 130 mark, and then see if we can break that. Again, this isn't the first attempt. You had your first attempt here, got rejected hard, even though you were in a descending wedge here, but this isn't the first attempt, so we could get a nice break up here. If we can break and hold above the 200, really is where we're trying to get. You can get a nice rip to potentially start running in all-time highs. It's funny because last week I wasn't even thinking about all-time highs. Now I'm thinking, well, if this thing continue to push for the next 3 weeks, we might be able to make it. But the problem is it's going parabolic. I think now you're starting to get FOMO and panic buyers, that the whole thing is reversing. So you're getting this massive amount of this massive push in hopes that it doesn't die off. So again, just risk management is huge. Just be mindful of that. As long as you're managing your risk, you should be perfectly fine. But that is pretty much what I got. It's going to be an interesting week. Again, there's not no news is good news. The market is hopefully topping out. Right, I don't want to call any top of inflation. Is the market bottoms and tops are hard to call, but even inflation is just absolutely no way you're going to be able to call that. Right, there's so much that changes. Events change the supply and demand very quickly. So, well, that being said, go ahead and drop a like button. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.